Tara was only 19 when she thought she'd found love. Jake, her boyfriend, was charming, funny, and had that bad boy edge girls either ran from or fell hard for. Tara fell, and fast. They'd been together for 6 months, and while they hadn't gone all the way yet, he made her feel special in a way no one else had. But Jake had a best friend. His name was Ryan. Ryan was different. Quiet, observant, always standing just a little in the shadows behind Jake. He wasn't loud or cocky, but when he looked at you, it was like he saw straight through all your lies. Tara always felt weird when he stared too long, like he was reading something she didn't want anyone to see. It happened during a party. Jake was drunk, too drunk, slurring his words, flirting with other girls in front of her. Tara watched him disappear upstairs with a blonde girl she didn't recognize, laughing and not even looking back. Her heart cracked in real time. She sat on the back porch alone, fighting tears, trying not to look like the pathetic girlfriend everyone was whispering about. Then Ryan sat next to her. He didn't say anything at first, just offered her his jacket and lit a cigarette, holding it out to her. She didn't smoke, but she took it anyway, desperate for distraction. "You don't deserve that," he said, eyes fixed on the dark backyard. "Yeah, well," she muttered, "guess I picked the wrong guy." Silence again, comfortable, heavy. She turned her head to look at him, and for the first time, she really saw him. Not Jake's friend, not the quiet shadow, but Ryan with his calm intensity, the slight sadness behind his eyes, and that quiet strength no one seemed to notice. "I always wondered why you chose him," he said, almost like it hurt to admit. Tara's throat went dry. Something shifted. She didn't remember who leaned in first. It just happened. A kiss, slow and unsure, then deeper. Her heart beat like it wanted to escape her chest. Every nerve screamed this was wrong, but her body didn't stop. They ended up in the guest room downstairs. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't soft. It was angry, desperate, emotional. And when it was over, and she lay beside Ryan, staring at the ceiling, all she could think was, "What have I done?" Morning hit too fast. Ryan was gone. The party was over. Jake was texting her like nothing happened. "Where are you, babe? Want to get breakfast? Last night was wild. I missed you, though." Tara didn't reply. Guilt gnawed at her, but it wasn't just guilt. It was fear. She had crossed a line, the kind of line that doesn't come with a rewind button. And what made it worse? Ryan texted her too. Only 3 words. "Don't tell him." Tara didn't sleep that night. She lay under her blanket, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun, slow and hypnotic, making a low hum like a warning. Every time she closed her eyes, flashes of Ryan's face came rushing in, the way he looked at her before it happened, the way he touched her like he'd been waiting for that moment for years. It wasn't just lust. It was loaded with something darker, something dangerous, but it didn't matter, because it was wrong. And now she had to live with it. Her phone vibrated on the nightstand again. Jake. "Come on, babe, are you mad at me? I didn't even hook up with that girl, LOL. She was annoying AF." Tara stared at the screen. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but no words came out. What was she supposed to say? "I saw you walk upstairs with her, and while you were probably screwing her, I gave my virginity to your best friend." She turned her phone off and buried, her face in the pillow, trying not to cry. Again. Sunday passed in a haze. She avoided everyone. Even her mum noticed something was off. "You okay?" she asked over dinner, pushing the mashed potatoes toward her. "Yeah, just tired," Tara lied. But Monday came like a slap, and school was the last place she wanted to be. She walked the halls with a hoodie pulled low over her head, trying not to make eye contact with anyone. The whispers started almost immediately. She could feel them, like tiny pinpricks along her skin. Jake found her at her locker, all smiles and swagger. "There's my girl," he said, leaning in for a kiss. She froze, flinched even. He pulled back. "Yo, what's going on?" She forced a smile. "Nothing. Just tired." Ryan was leaning against a locker across the hall, arms folded, watching them. His eyes locked with hers for half a second, Then he looked away like nothing had ever happened, like she didn't exist. That hit her harder than it should have. She avoided him all day. But during lunch, while Jake was goofing around with his crew, Ryan slipped her a folded note when no one was looking. "Meet me after school. Back bleachers. Don't bring him." Her stomach sank, but she went. The football field was mostly empty when she got there. Ryan stood with his back to her, kicking loose dirt with the heel of his shoe. When he turned, there was no smile, no warmth, just regret. "You weren't supposed to come," he said. "Then why'd you ask me to?" He looked away, jaw tightening. "Because I needed to say it out loud, that what we did was a mistake. I shouldn't have touched you." Tara stepped back like she'd been slapped. "Wow, that's easy for you to say. You're with him and he's my best friend. What happened that night, and it can't happen again." "Ryan, No," he cut her off. "Listen, Jake may be a dick sometimes, but he'd kill me if he knew. You don't know him." "Like I do. He's not stable, he has a temper. And this would break him." Tara's voice trembled. "So what? We just pretend it never happened." Ryan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Yes, you have to. For both our sakes." A tear slipped down her cheek, and she hated herself for letting it fall. "You think I wanted that to happen? That I planned it?" "No," he said softly, "but it happened, and now we deal with it the smart way." She nodded slowly, but her chest felt like it was caving in. "Okay," she whispered. "I won't tell him. But the thing about secrets, they have a way of slipping through the cracks, because 2 days later, Jake found the note. It had fallen out of Tara's notebook in the back seat of his car. He read it once, twice. His face went pale, then red. He didn't say anything that day. He didn't even tell her he knew, but everything was about to spiral out of control. Jake sat through 3 full classes with the note folded tight in his fist like it was burning a hole through his skin. He didn't talk, didn't smile, didn't even pretend to be okay. He just stared straight ahead like he was watching a movie in his mind, a movie where the girl he loved slept with his best friend behind his back. The words, "Don't bring him," were like a gunshot ringing in his head. The implication was clear: he wasn't an idiot. That afternoon he skipped football practice, walked right out of school without saying a word, went home, locked himself in his room. He didn't even text Tara, didn't confront Ryan. But inside, he was unraveling. Tara, on the other hand, felt the shift immediately. Jake hadn't looked at her all day. No teasing, no flirty smirks, nothing. When she finally texted him, "You okay? Haven't heard from you today?" The reply came 6 hours later. "We need to talk." Her chest tightened. She didn't sleep that night. By morning she felt like her body was on the edge of some cliff, and the wind was already pushing. He came to her house that afternoon, not inside, just stood out front, leaning against his car, looking colder than she'd ever seen him. Tara stepped out onto the porch. "What's going on?" He held up the crumpled piece of paper like it was a weapon. "This yours?" Her mouth went dry. Her legs felt like they'd give out. "Jake, where did you—" "I knew something was off. The way you flinched when I kissed you. The way you looked at him. I should have listened to my gut." "Please," she whispered. "Let me explain." He laughed, cold and bitter. "Explain what? That you fucked Ryan behind my back and didn't even have the guts to tell me?" Tears came instantly, hot and sharp. "I didn't mean for it to happen. You were upstairs with that girl—" "Oh, don't even start with that shit. I didn't touch her. I was drunk and stupid, yeah, but I didn't cheat. I loved you, Tara." She sobbed, voice cracking. "And I loved you. But I felt so worthless that night. You left me there. Alone. And he was just there." "Oh, he was just there," Jake snapped. "Right. Poor little you, helpless and heartbroken. So you spread your legs for my best friend? Classy." His words were knives. She covered her mouth and turned away, ashamed, humiliated. "I messed up, I know, but it didn't mean anything." "I swear to you." Jake stepped closer, voice deadly calm. "It meant everything, Tara. You gave him something that was supposed to be mine, and you lied about it." "I didn't lie. Every time you kissed me after that, every time—" You said I love you, and it was a fucking lie. She collapsed to the steps, hands shaking, crying like her chest would break open. Jake stared at her for a long time, and then he said the one thing that would haunt her for the rest of her life. You didn't just lose me. You woke up the worst part of me. He got in his car and peeled out of the driveway like he wanted the tires to scream. Tara sat there until it got dark, but that wasn't the end. Because later that night, Jake posted something on Instagram. A photo of her, taken from behind. She didn't even know he had it. Her sitting on Ryan's lap at the party, blurry but unmistakable. Her head tilted, her body close. The caption? She said she loved me but gave him everything. It didn't take long for the comments to start, or the rumors, or the judgment. People at school ate it up like candy. Some called her a slut. Some messaged her privately with disgusting things. Some girls pretended to feel bad for her but couldn't stop sharing the post in their stories. But the worst part? Ryan wasn't returning her texts anymore. Not a single word. She was alone. And Jake? He was just getting started. The next morning, Tara didn't want to leave her bed. She lay frozen, the light creeping through her blinds like it was judging her. Her phone was a war zone. Texts, DMs, tags, and people she hadn't spoken to in months suddenly remembering her name just to spit on it. You really let both of them hit. Elmo thought you were a good girl, you're just like the rest. Did he take a turn after Ryan or nah? Even worse? Some of the messages were from girls. Girls she thought were friends. Girls who smiled in her face in math class, but now called her a hoe behind her back and laughed with their little clique. Tara's heart wasn't just broken. It was turning to dust. Her mom asked what was going on. Tara lied, said it was just a fight with Jake. She couldn't even begin to explain the mess she'd stepped into. And school? School was a damn battlefield now. She walked in that morning like she was walking into gunfire. The stares, the whispers, the way people moved their phones just fast enough that she could tell they were still reading the post. Still, passing it around like a dirty secret everyone was in on. Jake was there, of course, sitting with his boys acting like a damn king. And every once in a while he'd glance at her and smile. Not the sweet smile she once fell for. No, this was a different kind of smile. The kind of smile a wolf gives a sheep right before it tears out its throat. But the worst part? Ryan. She finally cornered him by the vending machines, between third and fourth period. He saw her coming, and for a second his eyes widened. But then he looked away like she was nothing. "Ryan, please," she whispered, tugging his sleeve. "We have to talk. Please don't do this to me." "I told you this would happen," he muttered, low enough that no one else could hear. "You should have kept your distance. You're really gonna act like this wasn't your fault too?" "I didn't ask you to come to that room, Tara." That cut deep. She blinked, stunned. "You're unbelievable," she breathed. "You used me." "I saved you from Jake that night," he hissed. "Don't rewrite the story now that you're the one taking all the heat." She stepped back like his words physically hit her, and he walked away. No guilt, no shame, just cold indifference. For the rest of the day, she kept her head down. Teachers pretended not to notice the snickers and passing notes. No one came to her defense. Even the girl who sat next to her in English, who once shared gum with her every morning, moved her chair an extra inch away like betrayal was contagious. Tara made it home and locked herself in her room, phone buzzing non-stop. She wanted to disappear, to vanish off the face of the earth. But it wasn't over. Jake was working behind the scenes. That night, a new account popped up on TikTok, anonymous, no name, no face, just clips from the party, blurry videos of Tara and Ryan sitting, close talking, a little too much laughing, and a caption that read, "Guess she wasn't as innocent as she pretended to be." It went viral overnight. Thousands of views, hundreds of comments, and her name, even though blurred, was quickly recognized by half the school. Tara's world was shrinking, caving in. Her mum found her crying in the bathroom at 2 a.m. Now sitting on the cold floor, phone face down. "What's happening?" she asked, her voice trembling. Tara couldn't even answer. How do you tell your mother that your first time became a public execution? That the boy you gave your heart to wanted to destroy you, and the boy you gave your body to left you to burn? That your name now lived in screenshots, whispers, and cruel laughter? No. Tara didn't say a word, but inside, something started to shift. Not hope. Not yet. But a spark, a small angry ember of something she hadn't felt before. She wasn't sure what it was, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was something darker, and it wanted to fight back. Tara didn't cry the next morning. Not because it didn't hurt anymore. No, it still hurt. Deep, like something inside her had been hollowed out and left to rot. But tears, they were pointless now. Everyone had made up their minds about her. The good girl was dead. In her place was the label they'd slapped on her like a scarlet letter. The girl who gave it up to her boyfriend's friend. She scrolled through the TikTok account. Again, her jaw clenched. The anonymous profile had now posted 3 more videos. None of them showed anything explicit, but the message was clear, and people were eating it up. Jake hadn't commented directly, but everyone knew he was the one, pulling strings. And Ryan? Still silent. That silence cut worse than the lies. But the thing is, shame is only powerful when you accept it. And Tara had stopped accepting it. That morning at school, she walked in differently, not with her head high, not yet, but not like a victim either. She wore black, hoodie, jeans, boots, no makeup, no softness. She walked straight past Jake and his boys without flinching. Jake noticed. Of course he did. He smirked, leaning over to one of his buddies, whispering something that made them laugh too loud. Tara didn't look back, but later in the hallway she heard her name again. "Hey, Tara," someone said behind her. She turned. It was Lexi, one of Jake's ex-flings, known for her fake smile and sharp tongue. Lexi gave her a mocking pout. "Just wanted to say, you're like really brave. I could never sleep with someone's best friend, but you do you, girl." Tara didn't answer. She just stared at her, calm, steady. Then she leaned in real quiet and said, "Careful, Lexi. You're not pretty enough to be that mean." Lexi blinked, stunned. Tara walked away. She didn't feel proud of it. But it was the first time in days she didn't feel small. After lunch, she went to the library and logged onto one of the school computers, made a fake TikTok account of her own. It took her an hour to edit the video together. She didn't speak in it, just used captions. Black background, white text, raw. They're telling my story for me, so here's the truth. She uploaded clips from the party, ones she had, of Jake drunk pushing her off him, of the blonde girl leading him upstairs, of Tara alone on the porch, of Ryan sitting beside her, just sitting, no kissing, no touching. Just quiet. The final caption hit hard. "You think I ruined something? Maybe something was already broken, and maybe I didn't betray him. Maybe he betrayed me first." No music, no filter. Just the truth, raw and ugly. She didn't expect it to blow up. But it did. By midnight, the video had 23,000 views. By morning, it was over 60K. And the comments? They were different now. Wait, this makes everything look way different. So Jake cheated first and still played victim. Not her fault. He pushed her away. LMAO, the double standard is wild. She made one mistake and y'all crucified her. Tara's phone buzzed non-stop. Some people still called her names, of course, but something was shifting. People were questioning the narrative. And Jake, he lost his damn mind. That day, he cornered her in the back parking lot after school. "Do you think you're clever?" he snapped, eyes wild. "You think this changes anything?" Tara didn't back down. "It already changed everything. You're still trash. That video won't save you." She stared at him, calm. "It doesn't have to. I'm not trying to be saved anymore." He grabbed her wrist just for a second, hard, but someone saw, and that someone yelled, "Yo, back off!" A teacher came running. Jake let go and stormed off, red-faced, breathing hard. But it was too late. That video, the parking lot drama, it made things worse for him. Because now people weren't just talking about Tara. They were watching Jake. Really watching. And whispers started that maybe he wasn't the victim after. All. Maybe he was just another boy angry he lost control of the girl he thought he owned. Ryan hadn't said a word since everything blew up. Not a message, not a call, not even a glance in her direction. He walked the halls like a ghost, shoulders tense, eyes low. People looked at him differently now too, not with sympathy but with suspicion. His silence made him seem guilty. And guilt, it stinks. Loud even when you don't speak. But Tara wasn't waiting on his apology anymore. She had bigger things to focus on. Her second TikTok hit 100K by the weekend, her inbox filled with strangers. Some offering support, some trauma dumping their own heartbreaks, some just there to be part of the drama. She didn't care about the numbers, not really, but what mattered was the shift. She was no longer the villain in everyone's story. She was someone who'd been broken and bruised and still stood up. But just when she thought she'd started to breathe again, she got a DM from an account with no profile pic. Just one line. "Can we talk?" Ryan. She stared at it for a long time. Thought about blocking him, thought about cursing him. Out. But in the end she replied, "You have one chance, one. Meet me at the park tomorrow, 7 p.m. Don't bring your lies." It rained the next day, not heavy, just that cold, slow drizzle that feels like the sky's bleeding quietly. Tara sat on the rusted swing, hoodie pulled over her head, arms crossed. Ryan showed up exactly at 7:01. Same old jacket, same tired eyes, but no fake coolness this time, no pretending. Just a boy who looked like he hadn't slept since everything exploded. He didn't sit down, just stood a few feet away, hands in, his pockets. "I owe you everything I didn't say," he began, voice low. "And nothing I'm about to say will make what happened okay." Tara looked at him, no emotion in her face, just silence. "I froze," he continued. "When it all came out, I panicked. I thought staying silent would protect me." "From what?" she asked. "From Jake. From you. From the truth. I figured if I said nothing, I couldn't be blamed." Tara stood slow and steady. "And what about me? You left me alone to take the heat for something we did." "I know," he whispered, "and I hate myself for it." She watched him closely, no tears, no yelling, just truth now. "You made me feel like I was used. Like I was some mistake you wanted to erase." Ryan stepped closer, his voice cracking. "Tara, that night wasn't a mistake for me. It was messed up, yeah. But I didn't use you. I felt something. I still feel it." She flinched. "Don't say that. It's true. You watched me get dragged through the mud and you said nothing." "I was scared," he admitted. "Jake's not just loud. He's dangerous. He's hit people before, guys, girls. He's been kicked out of schools. I've seen what he can do when he loses it." Tara's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" Ryan nodded. "He's had people cover for him. His dad's connected. Money talks. But this time, you stood up, and you made people listen." That hit hard. She hadn't thought of it like that. "I don't want your pity," she said, voice sharp. "It's not pity," he said. "It's regret. It's guilt. And yeah, maybe it's still a little bit of love." She looked away. "I don't know if I can forgive you," she said finally. "I'm not asking you to," he replied, "but I'll say this. If you ever want to burn it all down, I'll hand you the match." She blinked. "What are you talking about?" Ryan pulled out his phone and opened a file, a video, Jake, at the party, in the bathroom, slurring, laughing with the blonde girl, and then shoving her, hard, laughing as she stumbled into the wall. "I didn't record this," Ryan said, "but someone sent it to me months ago, told me to keep it in case Jake ever turned on me." Tara's stomach dropped. "He hurt her?" "She never reported it," Ryan said. "She was scared. But it's all on video, and if you post this, everything changes." Tara took the phone, her hands shaking. This wasn't revenge. This was justice, and suddenly she wasn't the broken girl anymore. She was the girl with the truth and power. Tara stared at the video in her hand like it was a loaded gun. Jake, laughing, shoving that girl, the one he'd claimed, meant nothing. She stumbled hard into the bathroom wall, and though the angle didn't catch her face, it was clear. She didn't laugh back. She didn't touch him. She looked scared. And Jake? He didn't stop. Tara's heart pounded. This wasn't just about her anymore. This wasn't just revenge for humiliation or betrayal. This was something bigger, something that Jake had hidden for way too long. She turned to Ryan, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't you come forward with this before?" "I didn't think she'd want that," he replied. "But if you post it, the truth won't just hurt him, it could finally stop him." Tara nodded slowly, her chest tight. The video was time-stamped. It was real. And now she had the one thing Jake couldn't erase with lies: proof. That night, Tara didn't sleep. She paced her room for hours, her mind racing. She thought about the girl in the video, about herself, about how many others Jake had hurt with his charm, his control, his anger, and how everyone had always protected him because of who his father was or how good he was at football. Enough was enough. By sunrise, she had already edited the clip, no music, no filters, just raw, ugly truth. She posted it. Caption, "You thought you knew him, so did I. Watch closely." And then she added a second post, her face on camera this time, voice calm, clear. "This is the boy who humiliated me, who made the world believe I was the villain. But maybe the only thing I was guilty of was trusting the wrong people." She logged off and waited. It didn't take long. The video exploded in hours. Hundreds of shares, thousands of comments. Her DMs filled with people, strangers, classmates, even alumni, and all saying the same thing. "I always felt something was off about Jake. I believe you. Thank you for speaking up." But not everyone was supportive. Some defended Jake, called the video fake, claimed she was just trying to ruin his life because she got caught. But Tara was ready now. She didn't hide. She responded with grace and force. "Funny how the truth only hurts when it's about someone you like." Then came the real blow. The girl from the video messaged Tara directly. Her name was Maya. She was a senior when Tara was a sophomore. She'd left the school quietly. No one really knew why. Until now. "I've been scared for so long," the message read. "But if you're brave enough to speak, I will be too." Tara's hands shook reading it. They met the next day. Maya cried, and she told Tara everything. Jake had cornered her at that party, tried to force himself on her. She managed to push away before it got worse, but she was terrified. And when she told the principal back then, nothing happened. No investigation, no follow-up. Tara recorded everything. And then she and Maya walked into the office together, this time with evidence, with names, with pressure. The school couldn't cover it up anymore, not with half the town already watching. By that Friday, Jake had been suspended pending a formal investigation. And Tara? She walked through the halls like a damn storm. People moved aside when she passed, not because they hated her now, but because they didn't know what to say. Some said sorry, some avoided her, but no one laughed anymore. Not even Lexi, not even Jake's boys. And Ryan? He kept his distance until she found him again outside after school. He looked nervous, guilty, hopeful. "I heard," he said, softly. "You burned the whole house down." Tara shrugged, felt like it was time. "You did something I couldn't." "You could have," she said. "But you didn't." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I want to fix things. If that's even possible." Tara looked at him for a long time. "I don't know what's possible anymore," she said, "but I do know this. I'm not the girl who needed saving." He nodded. "You're the one doing the saving now." For once, there was no tension between them, no lies, just two people standing in the ashes of something ugly and finally breathing free. But the story wasn't quite over yet, because people like Jake, they don't go down without dragging someone else with them. Jake's suspension hit the school like a punch to the throat. Some students cheered it, saying it was long overdue. Others whispered that it was all a setup, that Tara was just bitter. But no one ignored it anymore. His name wasn't just whispered in gossip now. It was part of a full-blown conversation about consent, power, and how far people will go to protect their golden boys. He didn't show his face on campus after that, but that didn't mean he was gone. Tara started getting anonymous texts, blocked numbers, messages like, "You think you won, this isn't over. Careful, the truth works both ways." She knew it was Jake, or someone close to him. The timing was too perfect, the venom too familiar. At first, she ignored it, but then someone slipped a printed photo into her locker. It was of her and Ryan. That night, the guest room, blurry, low light, but enough to tell what was happening. Her blood turned to ice. She stared at the photo like it was a threat written in her own handwriting. Someone had been there. Someone had seen, and they were watching still. She rushed to the bathroom, heart pounding, hands shaking. The mirror didn't show the confident girl who'd stood up to the entire school. It showed the terrified one who had barely gotten through the first fire. Ryan found her that afternoon, the photo already crumpled in her bag. She showed him. His face went pale. "How the hell?" "I don't know," she said, voice hollow, "but someone has this, and they want to use it." Ryan looked away, jaw clenching. "Jake. Maybe. Or one of his boys. I don't care. I'm done letting them play me." She stormed home that night and did something she hadn't done in weeks. She wrote everything down, not just the story people knew, but the whole thing. How Jake had started love-bombing her months ago, how he'd slowly chipped away at her confidence, how she always felt scared to speak up, scared to say no, how the night he humiliated her pushed her into Ryan's arms, not because she wanted revenge, but because she felt worthless. She included Ryan's silence, the shame, the isolation, but she also included the truth. One mistake doesn't define me, but covering it up almost did. She posted the story on a blog under her own name. She didn't hide anymore. The blog caught fire. People outside the school began sharing it. Women messaged her, parents emailed the principal, journalists reached out for interviews. She said no to all of them. She didn't want fame, she wanted freedom. And maybe, just maybe, a little bit of peace. Jake's father threatened legal action, called it defamation, said his son was just a teenager making mistakes. But when Maya came forward, too, followed by another girl who'd had a similar experience at a party 2 years back, the school opened a full investigation. This time they couldn't bury it. Jake's scholarship offers dried up, his reputation shattered. He tried to blame Tara for all of it, said she ruined his life. But what he never understood was, he was already the one doing the ruining. She just stopped letting him get away with it. As for Ryan, they didn't date, not after everything. They talked, though. Some nights they'd sit in silence at the park, side by side, not holding hands, not pretending things were perfect, but just there, trying, healing. Tara's name would always be remembered in that school. Some would think of her as the girl who slept with the wrong guy. Others would remember her as the girl who blew up the system and exposed the cracks. No one wanted to see, but Tara. She didn't care what they remembered because she remembered everything, and she survived it. She had scars now, but she also had something else, power, and no one was ever taking that from her again.